Welcome, everybody, to another conversation with Jeff Hauswirth. He is the Vice Chairman at Ferguson Partners in Canada. And Jeff, good to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, Jeff, as you know, I had a lifelong career in journalism. And one of the key attributes, I think, of any journalist and the success of any journalist is curiosity. Is it also, do you think, a necessary driver in the business community and in really any leadership role?
I do, because, curiosity propels you to explore different avenues. And the beginning of curiosity is always a question, right? And the question is the spark. Without the question, when you think of some of discoveries from around the world, they occurred because someone asked a question, because they were curious. So I think curiosity in business is very, very important. And what I've noticed as it relates to CEOs, really good CEOs are really good listeners and have a high level to want to explore.
Well, and it's baked into innovation too. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of businesses that begin with the question that you mentioned, which is, what problem are you trying to solve?
Right.
And you don't know what problem you're trying to solve unless you've been curious about what problems are out there. So curiosity really is at the foundational level of, not only innovation, but entrepreneurship as well.
It's everything. I mean, I think companies, the foundation should be not run on answers, but run on questions, because it takes you to a place that you wouldn't otherwise go. I mean, you think of automated cars and all that. That's because someone had a question that led to something else. And I do think, sometimes you don't necessarily want to know where you're going when you're asking the question or what you're trying to solve, because if you do that, you limit the opportunity set, which is limiting, but it's uncomfortable for human beings not to be solving something.
It's in our nature, you're saying.
It is.
And is curiosity, do you think, contagious too?
I think when I think of really successful CEOs, they've promoted and encouraged people to be curious. And so that old saying, there's no wrong answer. I don't think everybody's wired that way. They want to be more structured. And once they start exploring, it goes to places that make them uncomfortable. And I remember sitting in a session in Sydney, and we were talking about this, and it was, they desperately wanted an answer. Yeah,
I mean, there's in the box thinkers and there's out of the box thinkers.
Yeah,
and curiosity can make, as you say, people kind of uncomfortable because
it's uncertain.
And you're basically saying, you actually have to make a connection to a decision. It's incumbent upon you to satisfy your own need to know that this is the right thing to do, and that's sort of based around curiosity. When people are looking to work for leaders who are curious, are there certain kinds of qualities that you think successful curious leaders possess?
I do. There's a number of them. One is, those who are successful are lifelong learners. We're a work in progress until the end. They ask questions that allow them to find an answer. Great leaders take the road less traveled, because that usually results in original outcomes. I mean, what's that definition of insanity? Do the same thing and hoping for different outcomes. It just doesn't work. They also promote and encourage others to think out of the box, to be curious as well. But that requires a CEO who's very agile, is comfortable working with the team to create a superior outcome. But a lot of leaders feel that they don't have control when they're doing that.
They can't approach a problem with any sort of fixed assumptions. What they're trying to do is empower the team to be curious and develop the assumptions.
Yes. So ego ego is not there. You want other people to be curious because that dialogue, that richness brings you to different places. I would also see that you're never a finished product. You're always in motion. And again, that's unsettling for people.
Well, it could be unsettling for an organization too. I mean, the other side of this may be, and you touched on this, people who just want to be told what to do. Is there a danger in seeding too much curiosity in an organization that you can't execute eventually because the curiosity can be endless?
I would rather it be endless than not endless enough. That journey of discovery, I know exactly what you're saying. If you have too many people in the room and everyone wants to go down a different path, that's not great for shareholders. But I think that's where, again, Sir Graham Day, I sat on the board with Sir Graham Day, who was with Margaret Thatcher and, in terms of the unions in London. And he was brilliant at bringing out ideas from other people, not his own, and then synthesizing them where everybody got behind it. And they didn't walk out of the room and go, I didn't buy that, or I didn't buy that. But he was a master at synthesizing. He did not feel the need that he had to be the author. And so everyone in that room then, Kevin, felt like they had authorship on the direction they were going. But it's when you see someone do that well, wow.
Yeah, that's really powerful because too often, people might make a show of consultation, knowing where they want to go anyway, and they'll sort of guide the conversation around the table. But to actually admit, let's figure this out together, and that I don't have the biggest skin in the game on this one.
No.
How do you find that quality often in some of the leaders that you place, and how important is that quality to whether or not they're successful?
It's the word curiosity is rarely in a position description. And I think curiosity is one of the most valuable things we have. And so when I see really effective leaders, think about this, a 4-year-old child has 250 questions a day. An adult has 20. So, someone who's got that, I don't want to say childlike, but they're not tainted by things that have gone in the past. And we've talked about, you and I've talked about this before, but they can put that behind them. And that saying is, well, we've tried that before and it didn't work. Well, there's no bearing there that it won't work if you try it again a different way. But I think the great CEOs I've seen are very curious. It's very effective. Great CEOs are great students. They love to learn, and it sets an example for the rest of the organization. It actually gives them permission to be curious.
And often, I mean, we've all faced times in our career where there are like a couple of paths that you can choose. Quite often, at least in my experience, I don't know about you and the people that you represent, but quite often I look at the two paths and I go, well, I kind of know where that one goes. I'm not so sure where that one goes. And typically I've taken the road less traveled. Is that a quality, do you think, that is common to good, curious leaders?
Yes. Because you're taking a different road that's going to show you different things. But the other part about this, Kevin, is that, a great leader will go down that road and realize, wait a minute, we've made a wrong turn. We have to back up. A lot of leaders aren't comfortable admitting they made a mistake and they have to back up. But that's fine. I mean, that shows empathy. It shows being transparent. Those are all human qualities that people enjoy. So
it shows humility too, which is something people respond to.
Yeah. I think I was looking up in Wikipedia the way you describe curiosity, and I thought that was quite fascinating. inquisitiveness.
You were curious about it, you mean?
I was curious. Inquisitiveness, interest, wonder, marvel, rarity. The opposite of curiosity was indifference, disregard, absence, heedlessness. So who do you want to be?
Yeah, and what kind of organization do you want to work in?
Yes.
Defining an organization as being curious. I mean, as soon as you wrote those down, I said, well, I've tended to work in incurious places.
Yes.
And so that's incredibly powerful when you think about it. It's a simple word, but it's everything that people desire in their workplace, which is dynamism, humanism, and
marvel.
And creativity.
And that becomes, to your point, it becomes contagious. Like if you had a choice to be curious or not, I mean, again, if you're curious, in my view, we're here to learn, and learn until we don't. But if you're not curious, you're not going to learn.
Is there a way of measuring curiosity's impact on the bottom line? Like there's all sorts of metrics around efficiency. There's all sorts of metrics around shareholder value and profit and loss. Do you know, or has it been your experience at least, that leaders that are curious have better bottom line results?
Yes.
Really?
I mean, I can think of about, it's not a cast of thousands, but I'm thinking of one in particular who became the CEO of what was effectively a utility, and now has branched out into adjacent industries like agriculture, like healthcare, and very, very purpose-driven. So agriculture is just becoming it's a bigger issue for us on the planet, and healthcare is becoming a bigger issue as well. So, but this CEO was unbridled in his thinking, and it was the art of the possible, and it's stimulating.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of CEOs of large organizations that have a risk management mentality, and they probably have to. So a pension fund can't go too far out of the lane,
right, because
it's people's livelihood is at stake. So I think different industries obviously have a different level of curiosity, but I was talking to a client 10 years ago, and we were talking about a janitor and what was the opportunity for that janitor to be creative and curious in terms of how he or she did their work. And it was a broad opportunity, but we just think there's nothing there, but there's something there always.
Mm.
I mean, when you think about industries, businesses that have been completely reinvented.
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect pivot quality, being curious, that when you have to pivot, if you're not curious, you're not going to, A, know you have to pivot probably.
No.
And B, you're not going to know where to pivot to. But for those out there who say, okay, yeah, that I understand curiosity, but I also want to be seen as an effective leader. Can you speak to me just as a final thought here about for people that are just looking to be led and just want to find a plan, right, that they can wrap their arms around? Is curiosity something that's useful in that kind of organization, and what can it add to a plan that kind of leader is interested in rolling out?
I think on that one, you have to have a CEO who empowers the team to take chances, and the only risk is if you fail that you don't try it again.
That's good advice. So remain committed to curiosity even in the face of failure.
Well, we learn more from failure than we do from success. And so, brush yourself off rather, and try it again.
And be curious about your failure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But take your emotion and your ego out of it. I mean, and athletes are a great example how, the mental fortitude that they require to come out of a failure, but an epic failure and a failure that is broadcast around the world. Because they, when you think about Roger Federer, where he is on his age-wise as a tennis player, he's reinvented how he plays tennis so he can still beat the younger people. But because he was motivated, but he was also curious to try different things. So when I look at somebody and they've come up with an idea because they went down that road that is not traveled, you can see them light up, right? It's so rewarding. Because this is now again, sorry to go off track, how many unique thoughts are there still left in the world?
I'm curious about it. I don't know.
It's unlimited.
Yeah.
It's totally unlimited.
Yeah. And so you and I have spoken once of about what question maybe encapsulates the curious soul. And the question that I think offered to you when we were having a cup of tea at one time was, how do you know that? And it forces a level of curiosity about okay, now you have to defend what you're going and your own assumptions and whatever. And it's vibrant. It's something that you just assumed is suddenly blown apart by curiosity. How do you know that? And to your point, I mean, my eyes just lit up because I just find that such a powerful question. And I find curiosity to be the driver of my life. And it sounds like, Jeff, you're saying it should be the driver and a key driver of choosing the right leader.
No question. And Kevin, what you do for a living, I've got to believe curiosity is the denominator on everything you do, because you would not pursue the truth or the angles if you weren't genuinely curious. If you weren't curious, you wouldn't bother.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And who wants to work that way, right?
Not me.
No, not me either, Jeff. Jeff Hauswirth, the Vice Chairman at Ferguson Partners in Canada. Thanks for satisfying my curiosity today anyway.
Thanks for taking the time. It's a fascinating topic. Take care. Bye, everybody.